last day of senior year always feels strange. Everything's lighter, like the whole school is holding its breath. Lockers left open, goodbye notes taped to doors, groups laughing, taking selfies, swapping yearbooks. Deep down, nobody wants to admit it, but everyone's a little anxious about what comes next. I got to school early with my 3 best friends, Emily, Josh, and Taylor. We'd promised Mrs. Carter, our favorite teacher, that we'd help her pack up her classroom after classes, but first, we all agreed today needed to be memorable. The kind of story you keep between friends forever. Our target was the Old East Wing, an off-limits section, boarded up since before we started high school. Local legend says a student disappeared there on the last day of school, back in the 80s. Every class has its own version, and nobody could walk past the taped-off entrance without feeling a chill. That day, Josh brought it up. Last day, guys. Someone's gotta finally check out the East Wing. Taylor tried to laugh it off, hiding the nerves. Let's see who actually has the guts when it gets dark. Emily, always down for an adventure, nudged me. If we all go together, it's not gonna be that scary. Just dust and old stories, right? Honestly, I was scared too, but the thought of leaving school without at least trying felt worse. We all agreed, it's now or never. During the break, we slipped past the Do Not Enter sign in the main hallway. Josh knew a storeroom window was loose, so we climbed in. The place smelled like mold and dust. Fading afternoon light squeezed through grimy window cracks, throwing weird shadows on peeling walls. Every step echoed. Emily started filming on her phone. Taylor pulled out a flashlight, but the battery was almost dead. I tried joking to lighten things up, but my heart was pounding. Nervous laughter bounced around as we poked through rusty lockers, old bulletin boards, stacked up desks. Josh took the lead, but his eyes gave away how on edge he was. In one classroom, we found a 1983 yearbook with black and white photos and a page marked missing. Last seen, graduation day. Emily flipped through and went quiet. The tension shot up when we heard metal clattering from the hallway. We all froze. The sound stopped, and everyone looked at me, like I was supposed to decide what came next. Swallowing my fear, I suggested we just go a little further. Up ahead, we saw a half-open door, dim orange light spilling out. Josh stopped in front, gave us that daredevil grin, and said, "Whoever goes in first is getting remembered forever. Go on, let's see who's for real." Emily was in right away, laughing. I followed, then Taylor, and Josh slipped in last. Inside, there was a mirror draped with a dirty sheet, old desks, and a pile of abandoned backpacks in the corner. Suddenly, a sharp noise behind us. We spun around, just a shadow thrown on the wall. Nobody. "That's not funny," Taylor whispered. Then footsteps started from upstairs. Emily whispered, "Is that someone from the staff?" But nobody should have been there by then. Josh insisted on checking. We climbed a creaky staircase. The second floor was darker, the windows covered with old newspapers, the air colder. It felt heavier, like we shouldn't be there. At the end of the hall, the old science room, Taylor hesitated. "Seriously, let's go. We've proved the point." Emily was fiddling with her phone, but the battery died. I didn't want to be the only one to back out. And that's when we heard it, a whisper from inside the room. "Don't leave me here." We all stopped. The sound was sad, almost like a little kid. Josh, who'd been acting tough all along, backed up. Emily tried to turn her phone on. Taylor started whispering a prayer. Instead of running, I did something stupid. I called out quietly, "Hello?" Silence, then footsteps. We saw a shadow slip across the doorway, no face, just a presence. That was it. Our group fell apart. Taylor bolted for the stairs. Emily nearly dropped her phone. Josh tripped over a desk. I could only think about getting out alive. We raced down the stairs, footsteps chasing us, getting faster and closer. At the exit, we tried the door we'd come through locked tight. Emily started to cry. Josh cursed. Taylor pounded on the window. I looked back. The shadow at the top of the stairs, unmoving, but I swear it was staring right at me. Suddenly, pounding from outside, Mrs. Carter, worried we'd been gone too long. She forced open the storeroom window, and one by one, we scrambled out shaking, sweaty, lost for words. Outside, we couldn't explain a thing. Emily tried to show her video, but the file was corrupted, just static. When we told the staff, they said it was just nerves, overactive imaginations. But the guilt of leaving Taylor behind for a second, the shame of not being braver, and that feeling that some people never really leave on the last day. That all stayed. A few months later, they demolished the East Wing. People say the end of high school is just the beginning. For us, it was a warning. Some stories don't want to be forgotten, and sometimes surviving is all you can do. There was something off about that night, even before it started. Maybe it was the full moon or the way the mist clung to the road. Most people wanted to lose themselves a little, say goodbye to high school, to routine, to their usual fears. And even if nobody admitted it, the after party was never really about celebrating. It was about seeing how far you could go before you lost control. Tyler's house was perfect for that. Out in the middle of nowhere, dim porch lights, an old patch of woods just behind the yard. I showed up with Hannah, half excited, half bored, mostly just trying to escape the dead silence at home. On the drive over, we passed a bottle of Jack Daniels back and forth, each sip burning and making me feel braver than I actually was. Inside, the house was buzzing. Loud music, cheap booze, too many people crammed into bedrooms and locked bathrooms. In the backyard, the fire pit drew everyone out into the cold air. I flirted with Connor, my ex. Not that I ever really liked him, just to see if Hannah would care. She'd always liked him, though she'd never say it. She pretended she didn't notice, but stuck close to me all night. It was annoying and kind of funny. The first time someone disappeared, nobody cared. Mason slipped off with Zoe when someone yelled that the beer was gone. When they came back, sweaty, Zoe's makeup smudged, Mason acting like nothing happened, everybody just made jokes. I laughed too, but deep down felt a weird envy, like everyone was living bigger, wilder, as if the end of school gave them permission. At some point, someone came up with a classic dumb idea. Go out into the woods behind the house, just with our phones as flashlights. They called it tradition, but really, it was just an excuse to see what happened when you pushed your luck. Hannah hesitated. Ben teased her. Mason vaulted over the fence first, and I was right behind him trying to prove something, though I couldn't say what. There were 5 of us, me, Hannah, Ben, Mason, and Zoe. The woods felt colder than the yard, damp air clinging to my skin. The flashlights cut into the dark, making the shadows even bigger. Mason kept tossing sticks to freak out Zoe. Ben was telling ghost stories. One about a guy who hung himself in those woods back in the 70s. Another about a lost dog that never came back. Halfway down the trail, Hannah tripped on a root, fell, got mud on her jeans, and snapped at me like it was my fault. I laughed, didn't help her up, just watched to see how much she could take. Mason made jokes. Zoe threatened to go back. Ben said anyone who bailed would be branded a coward for life. That's when we heard footsteps behind us. Sounded like another group, but when Ben called out, no one answered. Zoe, who'd been so tough until then, started to cry quietly, saying someone was following us. Relax, probably just Tyler messing with us, I said, but I didn't believe it either. When we decided to head back, Mason disappeared again. This time, nobody was laughing. We yelled his name, nothing. The silence in the woods was so heavy, you could feel it pressing in. We hurried back, pretending it wasn't a big deal, but every snapped branch made my heart race. Just before leaving the woods, we found Mason's hat on the ground. Zoe picked it up but dropped it fast, saying it felt wet, even though it hadn't rained in days. Hannah wanted to go back and look for him, but Ben said it was pointless. He probably just looped around to scare us. Back at the house, the party was dying down. Tyler was on the porch, looking tired, joking with whoever was left. "Lose somebody out there?" he called out, smirking. I shrugged, grabbed a warm beer from the kitchen, ignored Hannah asking for help. The music felt off, the laughter sounded fake. Some people started leaving, others crowded around the TV, pretending everything was normal. Deep down, everyone just waited for Mason to show up, laughing at his own prank. By sunrise, he still hadn't come back. Zoe was asleep on the couch. Ben and Hannah were bickering in the kitchen. Before leaving, I stepped into the backyard and stared at the woods. Something made me stop. Right where the trees met the grass, barely visible in the fog, there was a figure. Standing perfectly still, like it was waiting for something. Maybe it was Mason. Maybe it was just my tired brain, desperate for closure. I could have called someone. I could have gone after it. But honestly, I just stood there, hungover and a little scared, until the shape melted away into the trees. Nobody really talks about what happened that night anymore. If you ask, everyone says Mason just went missing for a few hours and came back fine. I've even told that version myself. But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, swearing I hear footsteps coming from the woods. And I keep wondering, what if that shadow wasn't Mason? What if someone's still out there waiting? Nothing about that day seemed out of the ordinary, but when you've spent years in the same hallways, you learn to sense when something's off. On the last day of school, I showed up earlier than I had to. The building was cold and hollow, lockers already emptied, the gym lights still off. I was only there to sign a few forms and return a library book, but the atmosphere felt different ever since the week before. I was never one of the popular kids, but I wasn't a loner either. My group was the type that claimed the same lunch table, always with inside jokes and complaints about exams. But that morning, everyone was talking about Evan, the new transfer student who'd arrived just a few months before. Evan was different. Not in the cliché way, just unsettling. He always seemed to know everyone's name, their schedules, little details about teachers or classmates, but no one really knew anything about him. He never used a phone, never joined any group chats, always answered in class, but never started a conversation. And his stare, he'd look straight through you, making you feel seen and invisible at the same time. The past week, rumors started flying that he'd been expelled from his last school, that he kept a locked box in his locker, that he wrote lists with people's names and wandered the school at night. I tried to ignore it, but that day, everything seemed to revolve around him. I dropped off my books at the library with Lexi and heading back down the hall, spotted Evan at his locker, fiddling with a metal box. I tried not to notice, but he looked right at me and said, "Last day, huh?" "Yeah," I replied, already trying to walk faster. "You're not going to the party, are you?" I hadn't told anyone I wasn't planning to go, just nodded awkwardly. He shut the box, eyes following me until I disappeared around the corner. At lunch, the tension was thicker than usual. Some people said Evan had slipped something into the principal's mailbox. Others whispered he was planning a show. I saw him by the bulletin board, holding a folded note. When I got close, he handed me the note without a word and walked off. I opened it. "If anyone cares, meet in the gym at 3 p.m. I stuffed it in my pocket, telling myself it was just another joke. When the bell rang, a part of me wanted to just go home, but curiosity and a weird sense of dread made me head to the gym instead. Along the way, I noticed a few other students with similar notes. The gym was dim, just the main court lights on. Evan was there, in the center, holding his metal box. Slowly, about 10 of us gathered around, all fidgeting and uneasy. Evan opened the box, pulled out a stack of papers, and started reading them out loud one by one, describing moments nobody else had noticed. When you forgot your homework and asked for help so you wouldn't get a 0. The day they made fun of you and nobody stood up for you. When you pretended not to see someone crying in the bathroom. And on, exposing small secrets, hurts, things people kept buried and silent. The air got heavier with each confession, until finally someone shouted, "What's your problem, man? Are you sick or something?" Evan didn't react. He just kept going. Nobody notices what's wrong because nobody wants to see it. Then he tossed the papers onto the floor, grabbed the box, and walked slowly toward the side door, never looking back. That's when the principal showed up, flanked by 2 security guards. "What's going on here?" No one answered. The floor was littered with papers, stories of being invisible, bullied, alone, all the things everyone pretended weren't happening. The principal picked up the box, flipping through the notes quickly, and you could see something shift in her face as she realized what they were. For a long moment, nobody moved. Only the sound of her shuffling the notes echoed through the gym. She started reading snippets aloud, her expression tightening. Notes about mean nicknames that stuck, students ignored for weeks, group text where one person never got a reply, times when someone missed school and nobody cared enough to ask why. Lists of names circled or crossed out. Dates, drawings, memories. The students nearby started glancing at each other, first suspicious, then embarrassed. Lexi, who used to laugh at Evan for being weird, went pale when she saw her name on a note about ignoring another girl in the hallway. Ben, one of the popular guys, turned away and stared at the ground, recognizing the story he'd caused himself, but had never realized anyone noticed. The principal looked up, her voice firmer now. "How many of you have been through something like this?" Nobody spoke. She continued, "How many here pretended not to see?" A girl beside me started crying silently. Someone else blurted out, "Why didn't anyone do anything? Why did we leave him alone?" Another kid, quiet all year, stepped forward. "It's not just him. There are more people like that here." He pointed at others, some surprised, others uncomfortable. The principal gathered all the papers. "This isn't just about one student. It's about all of us being silent." For the first time all year, it felt like people were truly looking at each other. In the days that followed, that moment was all anyone could talk about. Teachers started checking in with students more. Support groups formed. Conversations that used to be shallow turned real, sometimes painfully so. But a scar was left behind. Some people grew from it, reached out more. Others tried to forget, hoping it would all blow over. Evan never came back. Some said he moved away overnight. But for weeks, anonymous notes kept showing up on desks and lockers, in the bathrooms. No one ever figured out if it was Evan or someone inspired by him. What stuck with everyone wasn't a monster or a ghost. It was the realization that you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. In the senior photo, I look to the side and see the empty spot. This time, no one's pretending not to notice. If tonight's story sent a chill down your spine, hit the like button and share this video with someone who loves a good scare. Have your own late-night horror story? Drop it in the comments. I read them all, and you might hear yours featured next. And if you don't want to miss the next nightmare, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. After all, in the darkness, we're never really alone.